It's the most wonderful time of year. Hello, lighting people. LEDucation 2025 is just days away, ready to take place for the in-person trade show and conference at the New York Hilton Midtown, while the virtual conference sessions actually start this week. So, to talk about all this excitement building up to North America's largest annual trade show and conference for the lighting industry, we have with us the two co-chairs of LEDucation, Jamie Eck and Burt Grant. Jamie and Burt, thanks so much for joining us today. Jamie, let's start with you. How are the numbers tracking right now? What are we expecting from an exhibitor, from an attendee standpoint for the in-person event at the Hilton next week?
All right, well, thanks for having us out. The numbers are, we've got thousands registered already. We have approximately 400 different manufacturers. We'll have 667 tables set up. So again, you can expect probably record numbers by the time all is said and done. A lot of people do register at the time of the show. You know, they come to the show and they register. But right now, things are looking real well. We're going to have a well-attended show, starting to set up on the 17th.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it will be well attended for sure. I think people are just talking about this with great anticipation, and people from all over the country are coming. I remember, Jamie, I used to ask people when LEDucation returned from the pandemic in 2022, I was asking people at that show, is LEDucation still a New York show? And I was getting a mixed bag of responses. But now it feels like it's not even a regional show. It's a national show, international even.
Sure.
So congrats on all that, the momentum that we've seen, particularly in the last 3-4 years. And Burt, you're one of the co-founders of LEDucation. Is that correct? So you've been with it since the beginning. I think I joined in year 3-ish or so when it was at the godforsaken Hotel Pennsylvania. And I can say that because I think they've actually mercifully shut that thing down and tore it down.
Yes, sir.
But now we're at the biggest ballroom in New York City, the New York Hilton. And Burt, one of the things when this thing first started, it was a bunch of like regional sales managers or national sales managers showing up and throwing their sample bags on a table. Now it feels like we're trying to squeeze every cubic inch out of this 4x7 footprint that these manufacturers have. Tell us about the evolution of how the booths and the exhibits have evolved and what kind of snafus we might run into with enforcing all these particular rules in the tight space that we have.
The show originally started as a tabletop only show, and it was very clear in the instructions, tabletop only. And the first year we did the show, we had approximately 35 tables, 35 exhibitors, and everything was fine. It was tabletop. And the next year was still tabletop. And then as the show progressed, all of a sudden we'd have a manufacturer come over and say, can I put a big thing on top of my table? Or do I need the table? Can I just set it on the ground? And we said, yeah, okay. So bit by bit, there was a little erosion. And then all of a sudden, before we knew it, people were coming in with booths, modified small booths. Then another year we have bigger booth. So we're at the point where we've had to set very strict rules on size because we're restricted to aisle set sizes and widths. So in order to meet that, we can't have people with crazy booths. And we're starting to get tougher, and we really have to. We're starting to put some new rules into place to contain these people from crazy booth sizes.
It's a delicate balance because they're the ones that obviously fund the show with for a big, or I should say a big portion of it with the exhibit space rental that they have. But at the same time, if they have a sconce that's jutting out into the walkway and someone knocks their head on it because it's jutting into the aisles, which are already tight to begin with. It's obviously that I don't envy you folks trying to enforce these rules with all the creative marketing and booth setup people that we have. Jamie, let's transition to you. One of the things that LEDucation has been blessed with is this growing interest and this growing attendance. At times can make things a little tight as far as navigating. So it sounds like we've made some further developments this year to tweak that and provide some relief there. And tell us about that and other changes that we might see for the 2025 edition of LEDucation.
Sure. Right, Al. So to your point, we listened to the lighting community and we understood that what we needed was a little bit more breathing room in the space. People felt it was too tight. So we were victims of our own success, right? So you want a trade show with everybody there, but you also want time with the manufacturers, sticking with the original intent that you got to actually spend time and understand the mechanics of what these people were selling, right? So typically in different show years, we took out most of the spaces, so on the second and third floor. But this year we decided we're going to expand. So we have everything on the second floor and everything on the third floor. So what that does for us gives us more walkways. And it also allowed us, since we're one of the only trade shows that provides lunch to all of its attendees and exhibitors, we opened up the DLFNY cafes. So instead of having the lunches, so if anybody's been a veteran of LEDucation knows, the lunches and such were put in the aisles and along the walls, and it kind of created a like a dam point, if you will, right? So a squeezing point for people. We've now moved all those out. So now we have a DLFNY cafe on the second floor, which will be in the Murray Hill room. You can access it through Rhinelander. There'll also be some high tops and things like that, so people can stay there, have some conversations, and eat lunch. On the third floor, again, for those who have attended LEDucation before, student lighting competition will be up there where the lighted up reception used to be. So we're going to have the student lighting competition. And then next to that will be the DLFNY Cafe on the third floor by the promenade. So, and taking up one of the Mercury ballrooms. So it won't be in anybody's way. You can go grab what your lunch is and move on.
No, that's great, and it's about maximizing the experience for everyone. And one of the things I respect about what you folks do, and there's a committee that goes well beyond the two of you that put so much work into this, that start probably right after LEDucation, you start planning the next one. And one of the things about that is that you continue to still enhance and listen to feedback. For instance, I think you folks tried to have extended hours one year, and then you pulled that back when it wasn't a beloved feature that we could pull back on. And I like all these changes that you're making. You certainly don't need the food near the booths to draw booth traffic. The booth traffic will come, and this will ease the traffic in other areas. So congrats on that. Now, we just mentioned the DLFNY Cafe. For those that don't know, the DLF is the Designers Lighting Forum, and NY is the local chapter of DLF, which owns the show, the LEDucation show. But in its origins, and I read this, I think, on the About Us page of LEDucation just recently, it shows that this show was actually a joint partnership between the local New York City IES section and DLFNY. So Burt, as one of the co-founders, how did this joint event eventually just turn into DLFNY being the main and only owner of the show?
Started with two IES members approaching me because either the IES didn't want to do it or didn't want to work with them. I'm not sure what the reason was, but they came to me and asked if the DLF would be interested in running the show. And I checked with our president, and they said, yeah. They said, Burt, as long as you're one of the people organizing it with them, fine, go ahead. So we started it, and the first show was a joint IES-DLF program. And I think the second one was too. However, we found out that the IES wasn't participating in any way whatsoever. It was the DLF that was running the show. So after about 2-3 years, we said, well, this is ridiculous. However, so we made it a DLF show, but IES gets free admission. IES members.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, great. Excellent. Well, that makes sense. And I think the IES New York City section is very, very strong section, even without the share of revenues from LEDucation. They certainly do very well, particularly with their gala that they have in June of every year. So
I just to add, the IES does sponsor all the presentations, and they also have the IES student competition there. So there are bits and pieces of the IES that are still part of the program, even though it's being run by the DLFNY.
When it comes to lighting standards in the lighting industry, they're arguably the most important organization. So it's great to have their fingerprints all over this and their involvement in it, but also at a local level, for designers, you look at two organizations that have the most impact, which are DLF and IALD. So to have the DLF and the IES and all this presence there, that's fantastic. I think, I've known Burt a long time. Burt and I used to be on a local IES section many moons ago on the Long Island section. We were both officers or board of directors a long time ago. So I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be in New York City on March 17th, aka St. Patrick's Day, on the same day of the parade. Jamie, have you been to how many times have you been in Midtown during the parade, Jamie?
Oh, I've been a bunch of times. My dad used to march in the parade. The high school I went to has marches in the parade. I've been in the city a bunch of times during the parade. So.
All right. So tell us, what should someone who has not experienced what Midtown is like on the St. Patty's Day parade day, what should they expect?
It's going to be extremely crowded. You get a couple of million people who are lining the streets and getting into the bars and the restaurants and such. My advice would be, if you're going to be coming to the Hilton, come from the west side. So go down below, come up around the Horn, or go up above and come on down to get there. And public transportation is going to be your best friend. So you're going to want to take the subway, the trains. You certainly don't want to be driving in Manhattan, because everything is going to be blocked. So it shouldn't affect our move-in, because most people are shipping their product in via drayage, and they're going to be getting there, I believe, this week going into next. So we should be offloading quickly. And so that won't be an issue. It's just the actual people getting in.
Yeah, I remember carrying a sample case through Midtown and trying to get like from Lexington Ave to Robert Director's office close to 6th Ave. And it was like jet in front of the Wantagh Bagpipe Brigade just to try to get to my next appointment. And it feels like it's a festive lawlessness in a good way. Like it's just
in a very good way. It's a lot of fun.
You'll see people not walking straight lines all over the place. So it's a very festive day. And also, it sounds like, Jamie, you just basically said anyone who lands at LaGuardia on midday and on Monday is screwed, because they're not going to.
It's going to be a tough putt, as they would say. But I will say, you can go right over to Citi Field and grab the train or the railroad. Get one of those two. They'll be your best friend at that point.
You know, exactly. The train is a schlep from LaGuardia, but on that day, that might be the good move.
The best thing for you.
So, Burt, when you look at how this thing has evolved over the years, and you look forward to LEDucation 2025, what kind of mindset do you have walking into this modern show that's become just such an incredible success compared to the early days? Kind of how do you put this in perspective for someone who's been there since the beginning?
As I said earlier, the first show we had 35 tables, and we had an attendance of 350 people, and everybody said, "Do you think we should do it again next year?" And we said, yeah, let's do it again next year. And we did. And the next year we jumped up to 75 tables and about 750 people. And then we kept moving on. So now we're up to well over 600 tables, about 450 actual exhibitors. And this past year we had over 11,000 attendants. So the show has grown tremendously. As you said earlier, it's become international. I did bump into a number of people at the show this past year who were from other countries. And I asked them specifically, did you come to New York just for LEDucation, or did you come? No, we just came just for LEDucation. So that was an interesting thing. It wasn't part of a vacation they came here. They came just to see our show.
Yeah, it happens. It's been happening in recent years, and it's happening again this year. I'm getting people from overseas sending me direct messages on LinkedIn saying they want to meet me at the show and talk about blah, blah, blah. It's incredible. You guys must get 10 times as much of that than I do. But in any sense, it's just amazing what you folks have done, all the work that you and the team do. One thing that we don't have time to dig into is the education sessions, the conference sessions. If you haven't registered for those, do so. It's an impressive lineup of speakers. That alone is worth the trip to New York. But then obviously all the exhibits create a great way to see some of the greatest products out there that have been launched in recent times as well.
The IES student competition. We started this a year, I think, or two ago. I can't remember. But this is a wonderful opportunity for people to come in and see what the youth is doing for lighting. It's interesting.
Agreed. And for those design firms who are always complaining about being shorthanded on people, let's get your summer intern lined up at the student competition as well. So
which that actually did occur after the previous lighting competition.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So there's so many stakeholders in this, and it's like a feel good story all around. I know any trade show of any size is always going to have people who have one little complaint here or there, but ultimately it's a total vibe of positivity of people skipping out of LEDucation every year. So I'm really happy to have this preview with you guys. I look forward to seeing each of you next week at the New York Hilton. Burt, thank you so much for all you've done over the years, and thank you for joining us today for Five Big Questions. And Jamie, thanks for hopping on this call with everything you have to do, and we'll see you in New York next week.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Al. Thank you very much for having us.